Squatting totally ATG is literally the only way to go. If your butt doesn't touch the floor, then the rep is worthless. What's up guys, Enkiri here, and today I want to talk to you guys about exactly what I would do if I could start all over. If I could go back and do it all again from day one, knowing what I know now, what would I do? How would I go about the process of maximizing my beginner gains and accruing my knowledge base as widely and as quickly as possible in order to avoid wasted time and optimize my progress over the long haul? I'm not going to delve into specific training details here today that I would change along the way, but rather I'm going to give you guys the format that I would personally follow in order to maximize my progress and maximize my trajectory and optimize the course of my training career. And I'm going to break it down into 3 stages here for you guys today. The 3 stages are stage 1, what I call the learning stage, stage 2, what I call the transitional stage, and finally stage 3 is what I call the self-guided stage. Alright, so I'm 18 years old again, and I have no knowledge of anything weight training related whatsoever, right? All I know is that I want to be jacked, and I want to be tan, and I want to be a fucking beast, both inside of and outside of the weight room. So, what do I do? Well, as a raw, completely inexperienced, and totally green 18-year-old kid, personally, I chose to do push-ups and dumbbell curls every single day. There's no such thing as leg training. That certainly doesn't help you to build muscle or become a more formidable athlete. And there's no such thing as progressive overload or progression in general or anything like that. All I know is if I do a few hundred push-ups and a few hundred curls every single day, that has to be the absolute surest and fastest path to the most absolute levels of swolitude. Except there's one teensy little problem, and that is this is the dumbest training plan that anyone has ever come up with. So if I could go back and do it all over again, what would I do instead? Well, instead of jerking off for these first couple years like I ended up doing, I would hire me. I would find an expert in the field and I would tell them what my goals are, and then I would just listen to them. I would just do whatever the heck they told me, no questions asked. And it doesn't have to be me, obviously. I'm not the only coach out there. There are plenty of guys out there that are supremely knowledgeable in different facets of fitness. And that's kind of the thing. There are a myriad of different paths that one can choose to go down in this single endeavor. And with platforms now like YouTube being so popular, the distinctions between those different paths are all very well illuminated, and they're out there for you guys to kind of see what you like and which one that you want to walk down, or maybe you want to walk down several of them as best as you can. You know, I have my little niche and I think that I do it pretty damn well, but there are other guys out there who have their own niches and they coach from an expert level within them as well. And it would be beyond the scope of this video to recommend specific people for specific endeavors, but they're out there, and the good ones are not that hard to find these days. The important part is figuring out what you want to achieve and then finding a guy or girl who's an expert in that specific realm or sector of fitness so that he can guide you as optimally as possible. Or if you have a variety of goals that you want to pursue, then maybe you'll want to learn from several different people in several different realms. I have a client right now who signed up with me recently, and he's worked with Renaissance Periodization, he worked with Jordan from Barbell Medicine, and I think he worked with one other pretty well-known coach as well. It's slipping my mind right now, but he's working with me currently, and so he's picking up a great variety of information, right? And a variety of different knowledge bases from a multitude of highly credible sources spanning multiple different facets of fitness. And no one person knows everything, right? And this guy is doing himself a great service by learning from everyone that he can. But I'm never here to tell anyone how to spend their money. And if you don't want to go this route, if you don't want to hire somebody to help you out along the way at first, I think it's a very valuable thing. It's an investment in yourself. But if you don't want to go this route, then research is going to be your best friend, your absolute best friend. And by that, I don't mean research studies, because those are often pointless. I mean research as in self-study, teaching yourself and learning for yourself, learning from these aforementioned expert sources by using the free information that they put out there. The internet is prolific and cheap, and it has free information about every single fitness related topic that you can think of from many different expert sources. So scour that shit, research, read, learn, absorb, and then put it all into practice as best as you can on your own. It won't be as foolproof as hiring an expert to guide you, but it is the next best thing. So, there's no excuse in 2021 to be training like an asshole, because all of the information is already out there. You just need to piece it together for yourself. And once you've been at it consistently for a few years, maybe a little bit longer depending on various factors, but once you've kind of gotten your bearings under you, right, then you'll enter what I call the transitional stage. And it'll take a little bit longer to get to this stage if you decided to undergo the learning stage, stage 1, on your own rather than with a coach. So just bear that in mind as you watch the remainder of the video. But in the transitional stage, you kind of know a few things, right? You kind of know some things, but at the same time, you kind of don't. You're basically right at the point where you're most likely to fall victim to the Dunning-Kruger effect. You know just enough to think that you know better, but you don't really know enough to actually know better, or to be aware of what you still don't know. So it's very important to stay sharp and open-minded here. You don't want to get caught in the trap of thinking that you know better than everyone else, which I did for a little while myself. You don't want to think that you know better than all the other sources of information out there, the old washed up guys, right? Because everyone's perspective has at least some level of validity, and that's something important to remember. But this is, for example, the stage where personally I thought that squatting totally ass to grass, your calves had to be touching your butt had to be an inch off the floor. That was the absolute only way. If your butt didn't touch the floor, the rep was worthless. If you deadlifted with straps, worthless. If you needed to lift with a fucking lifting belt, worthless, right? There was a lot of absolutism in my case because I knew some things and I was pretty strong, but I hadn't really been around the block yet. At least not enough times to have it all kind of start to sink in. Now, if I could go back and I was in this stage of training again and I was training under a knowledgeable coach, this is where I would start to request some small level of autonomy. And it's important to note here that not everyone has to move past the learning stage, stage 1, right? Even if they have the knowledge to do so, they may not have the desire to try to use it for themselves. They may simply want to have it all dictated to them for the remainder of their training career, and that's perfectly fine. That would be their prerogative, and I know people who are like that. But in my own case, and I think in most people's cases, eventually they want to branch out on their own. And so part of my job now is to pass my knowledge on to them as best as I can so that they're the most well equipped to be able to do that on their own over time, to be able to branch out on their own. And so if I could go back, this is the point where I would start requesting some level of autonomy in my training. Maybe I would want to use RPE sets or some other form of auto-regulated progression in my training, or something that lets you make intra-training decisions of your own accord based on how you feel that day, or maybe making certain game day audibles within reason. But basically, I would want to kind of start to take the training wheels off bit by bit now so that I could start to learn about myself as an athlete and maybe even make a couple of mistakes for myself as well. That's kind of inevitable, but also learn how to put into practice some of the knowledge that I gained up to that point. And so if you're traversing through this stage on your own, this would kind of be the point where instead of maybe just following a program like Starting Strength or following one of Johnny Candido's free programs, instead of doing that, maybe now you take one of those programs and you use it as a guide or as a template, but then tweak it around a little bit to make it better suited to you and your current current goals and your current situation. Or maybe now you know that you, as an individual trainee, need more volume in a specific area, or less volume in a specific area, or more frequency or less frequency or whatever. But the point is you can start to tweak variables now of your own accord because now you have the knowledge and the experience to do so. And as someone still in the learning stage, stage 1, I would not recommend that you do this. I would say instead, take a program written by an expert and follow it to the fucking letter. Do the actual program. Don't mess with the sauce. But once you've entered the transitional stage, stage 2, then you kind of do have to give it your own flair, right? Or you'll never really truly learn the ins and outs of the game. And you're gonna mess up now. That's inevitable, but that's also fine. You've already maximized your beginner gains by listening to those experts 100% of the time, right? Beginner training is the most predictable training of all. So if you're ever gonna just listen 100%, that's the time to do it. But now, in order to maximize your gains for the long haul, you need to actually learn about yourself as an individual, as an athlete, and as a lifter. And that involves customizing things for yourself to an extent at least, and making some more of your own decisions. And as a developing athlete in this transitional stage, that is exactly the type of guided autonomy that I personally would request. And finally, after a few more years spent in the transitional stage, a lot of trial and error, and many more hours of experience accrued, you enter what I call the self-guided stage, the final stage. And this is where I am right now. So we're kind of speaking to my present day situation at this point. And this is where you should strive to spend the majority of your training career, right? Your goal should be to get here in 10 years or less, and then spend the next 30 years here, or whatever the heck it ends up being. At this point, there are no training wheels left, right? You're on your own. You may not be fully efficiently autonomous just yet, but you will get there one day. And here's the thing, by now, you should have accrued a level of knowledge and experience and expertise that even if you learned nothing new for the rest of your life, you would still be able to figure out how to make slow and steady gains, slow and steady progress over the years. However, and this is a big however, that is not an excuse to stop learning.
Breathe out and tighten down.
You should always read all that you can from as many different sources as you can. You should experiment on yourself and to a reasonable degree on your clients as well if you have them. And you should constantly hone and refine your body of knowledge and your level of expertise. Follow legitimate experts on social media and on the internet and analyze their work. These people will remind you of the things that you already know but haven't been thinking about lately, and they'll also teach you things that you still don't fucking know. Personally, I just bought the book Super Training and a book called The Special Strength Training Manual for Coaches, both by Yuri Verkhoshansky, and they're both pretty old books by an old dead Russian guy, right? But you can bet your ass that I'm gonna pick up a hell of a lot of new training knowledge from both of them to experiment with. And along with this idea of continuing education, it's important to remember that your goals are inevitably going to change as you advance as well. You might not care about hitting the absolute heaviest squat that you can hit a decade from now. Personally, I was very invested in maximal strength for several years, but now I am much more invested in power and movement capacity. I'm still training like a strength athlete in some respects, but at the same time, I'm also training like a sprinter in other respects. And at this point in my life, I would rather be able to run fast than squat big weights. That's just what happened. And those are complementary goals in some respects, but one can also become an impediment to the other. And so striking the balance that's most in accordance with your current goals becomes a very important concept. And these are things that you kind of figure out as you go along and as you continue to learn and evolve. But the point really is we must always continue to evolve. Goals change, your body changes, your mentality changes. And if you become stuck stagnant, then you will get left behind in some respects, regardless of how sound that your knowledge base may be in certain arenas. But by this point, you should be well versed enough to know that there's always something to learn and somebody to learn it from. You're never going to know everything. You never will. And frankly, that's a good thing, because it would be pretty damn boring to just be a freaking know-it-all. And like I said, this is the stage where I would tell you that I am now. And it took me almost a decade to get here, in my opinion. Maybe more than that, if I'm being truly honest. But finally, I've been doing this for, I don't even know, man, 14, 13 years, something like that. I feel like I've figured a few things out, and I'm confident in what I know, and I'm also comfortable enough to admit what I don't know and what isn't really my wheelhouse. But I'm still learning, I'm always learning, I'm still evolving, I'm still honing, and I'm still perfecting my philosophy and expanding my knowledge base. And better still, I always will be. So that pretty much wraps it up, guys. I got a little bit long-winded there, and I do apologize for that. I kind of knew what I wanted to say going into this, but I was having a little bit of trouble articulating it. So I do hope that I got my message across and that it made sense to you. And if you really want to just skip the whole damn video and click the timestamp that I'm going to inevitably link to this part, then here's your quick and dirty synopsis of the whole damn thing. If I could go back and start all over again, I would hire a knowledgeable coach or 2 or 3 coaches over time and have those guys teach me everything that they know. As my knowledge and experience base grew, I would ask my coach to continue to guide me and provide me with counsel, while also partially taking the training wheels off and giving me some autonomy in my training so that I could make my own choices and my own decisions and figure things out on my own, and also be willing to accept the potential failures of those decisions as my own. And then finally, eventually I would branch off on my own altogether and just do the whole damn thing by myself, while always remembering to keep an open mind, keep researching, keep learning, keep evolving, and keep honing my skill set and my knowledge base. And that's it, man. I think that trajectory is the best way for a completely new lifter to maximize not just their beginner gains, but also to maximize their absolute long-term progress while keeping injury risk to a minimum and learning best practices along the way. I just wish that I could turn the clock back 15 years and use this guide for myself. And I can't do that, but many of you guys can. So Godspeed. I wish you the best of luck in your training and in your education. And if you know a beginner lifter who you think could benefit from this advice, then please be sure to share this video with them as well. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, please remember to hit the like button before you go. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and definitely leave me some love in the comments down below. But don't do it for the algorithm. Just leave me some love because you love me. And if you're interested in online coaching or training programs, be sure to visit my website, www.enkirielitefitness.com, for more details. Keep training hard, and I will catch you guys next time.